Boogeyman Ben. Horror Zone.
Hey everyone, it's Boogeyman Ben. Hope everyone's doing well and everyone's having a great weekend. And this is going to be a retrospective on the Terminator franchise. Now, I had done a video a couple weeks back saying, the types of videos I wanted to do this summer, things I wanted to focus on. And the retrospective series that I've done for the last, I've done several of them, probably more than that, probably about 20 retrospectives on film series that I've enjoyed. And I've mentioned before in some of my previous videos, but I am not a huge science fiction or sci-fi fan, but there are a couple of exceptions. The Alien franchise, the Predator franchise, and what I'm going to talk about today, which is the Terminator franchise. Now, I've been a fan of the Terminator franchise since I saw the very first film when I was 11 years old. It was the year after it had been in theaters, so it was in 1985, and I saw the film for the first time. I had known who Arnold Schwarzenegger was from the film Conan the Destroyer, which was a film that was on HBO all the time, and I used to watch that. But seeing the film The Terminator for the first time just left an indelible mark on me. I've always loved the character. I've loved the franchise. And with the new film, Terminator Genisys, coming out this summer, I thought it was kind of a cool time to do a retrospective on the series. Now, I wanted to wait until I did see Terminator Genisys, and I saw it yesterday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each film in the series and give my thoughts, give a little retrospective on plot and, plot, cast and crew, and things like that. But I hope everyone looks forward to my take on the Terminator franchise. Please stay tuned. Released in 1984, the plot of The Terminator deals with a human-looking, indestructible cyborg who is sent from 2029 to 1984 to assassinate a waitress whose unborn son will lead humanity in a war against the machines, while a soldier from the war is sent to protect her at all costs. This film is fucking fantastic still. We're going on 31 years after this movie has come out, and I still think it retains it's the amazing acting, directing, visual effects. I know that some people might look at them as dated, but for me, this movie just completely engrossed me as a kid, and the subject matter freaked me out. I was pretty young, like I said, when I saw this. I was about 11 years old when I saw this for the first time, and my dad let me rent it. And because he was a huge fan, he just really liked this film, and I was able to watch it, except for the sex scene. I couldn't watch that, but so they blocked that from me. But I was able to watch the film, and I just remember the subject matter of nuclear war. But I had seen the movie The Day After Tomorrow, which is a realistic depiction of what would happen if there was some type of nuclear event. And I remember seeing that film. I was a little bit younger than I was when I first saw Terminator. I think I was about 9 when that movie came out. I might have been maybe 10, but I saw that film, and that movie freaked me out because I never knew that anything like that existed. And then to see this movie where the subject matter is that this system called Skynet would eventually try to wipe out the human race, and these machines would take over. That was just terrifying. But for some reason, this film, as much as I was terrified by it, I was also enthralled by it. And I think a lot of it just has to go to James Cameron's original story, amazing story, and his direction, but also the performances. Arnold Schwarzenegger is fantastic as the title role. I love him in this movie. Completely terrifying, just because he's got one mission, and Schwarzenegger, with very few lines, plays that so beautifully, and just his mannerisms and the way he talks, and even the few lines that he has, he is just awesome, force to be reckoned with in this. I love him as a villain, which, originally he was supposed to play Kyle Reese, and Lance Henriksen was going to play the Terminator, because Cameron's original idea for the Terminator film was that the Terminator could blend in and look like anybody. And of course, Lance Henriksen was a much smaller man, but the original design work of what the Terminator would look like with the cyborg eye and everything was Lance Henriksen. And what happened was, when Schwarzenegger got the script, he wanted to play the villain, which was in the 80s, you didn't do that. You were the hero, and he had played Conan, of course, and was just breaking into his own into the motion picture business. But he wanted to take the risk and play the villain, and I'm so glad that he did. As much as I love Lance Henriksen, I mean, Terminator, I mean, this is Schwarzenegger. He's just awesome in this role. Also got to give my hats off to Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor. I absolutely love her in this film. Always been a fan of her, I mean, starting with the first time I saw this, but I wish she had stayed with the franchise a little bit more outside of just doing 2 films, but just her presence has always been felt through the rest of the films for me. And I love her as Sarah Connor. She's awesome in this. I mean, you really feel for what she's going through. She plays that off beautifully, and you really, you know, the peril she's going through, and her friends are getting killed, and she's on the run from this thing that just won't stop until it kills her. So, I mean, it's terrifying, and you really are with her through that whole thing. And then I cannot say enough great things about Michael Biehn. I've always been a fan of Michael Biehn. He's awesome as Kyle Reese. Kyle Reese is always going to be one of my favorite heroes. Kyle Reese character, and Michael Biehn just plays him to perfection. I've loved him in everything he's done, from Aliens to The Rock. Everything I've seen Michael Biehn in. Tombstone. Just a fantastic actor, and I just love the character that he plays, because he's just, you know, he's down and dirty. He'll do anything he can to protect Sarah. He's been through hell and back, and you just feel for him and what he's gone through, and yeah, you just love him for the fact that he's willing to sacrifice himself just to make sure that this woman lives, so that John Connor will be born and lead the resistance. And also, I love the practical effects, and I love the animatronics that were used. Stan Winston, of course, did the design work. I mean, it's just fantastic, fantastic visual effects. And of course, they did a lot of stop motion, because it was back in the 80s before CGI. But I just love it, and as much as people, you know, might think it looks dated, I think it retains its effect for me. I just love it, and just love everything about this film. I really cannot say, there's nothing bad to say about this film. Absolutely love it. Still, out of every film I've seen in the franchise, is still my favorite. The original Terminator 1984 gets 5 skulls. 10 years have passed since Sarah Connor was targeted for termination by the cyborg from the future. Now her son John, the leader of the Resistance, is the target for a newer, more deadly Terminator, the T-1000. Once again, the Resistance has managed to send a protector back in an attempt to save John and his mother Sarah. Terminator 2 Judgment Day would be released in the summer of 1991. It would be July 3rd, 1991. It was just a couple months before my senior year of high school, and I remember this was the summer movie to be seen. I didn't know anything about this movie before going into it. I just knew that Schwarzenegger was coming back, Linda Hamilton was coming back, and James Cameron was going to be directing again. And then this is when special effects were just taking off, because the T-1000 in this is made out of liquid metal, so they did this whole, you know, CGI thing where he would turn into like different people, and he had knives for hands, and like he could do all this crazy stuff that we hadn't seen in movies before. So this was just a cutting edge, balls to the wall action movie. But before I saw that there was going to be a new Terminator in the film, I kept thinking it was going to be that they were going to send another bad guy, Arnold, you know, style, that Arnold was going to play the bad guy again in this film. And at first, as a kid, you know, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted Arnold to come back and play the bad guy. But then I found out they were going to reprogram, and he was going to be the good guy. He was going to be the protector for Sarah and her son John. And at first, when I was a kid, I was a little disappointed, because I wanted to see Schwarzenegger play a villain again, which I thought was awesome. But, you know, I mean, there's nothing, you know, I mean, this movie is fucking awesome. I love Terminator 2 Judgment Day. It might shock a lot of people, but I still like the first one more than this one. I think the reason why I like the first one so much is because it's such a dark movie. There's nothing happy about the ending to that film. I mean, just knows that, you know, Sarah knows at the end of the first Terminator that, you know, she has to prepare her unborn child for what's to come, and the storm is coming. And in this film, I felt like it went a little more lighthearted than I necessarily would have liked. I thought Edward Furlong was fine as John Connor, but the relationship between him and the Terminator, I thought, got a little more kid-friendly than I thought should have been, but I understand why they did it. And over the years, I've come to accept it more, and it doesn't like bother me or anything. But for me personally, I just wish it would have been as dark as the first film was. But there's so much to like about this film. Number one, Arnold Schwarzenegger, fantastic again in his roles. And Robert Patrick as the T-1000 is fucking creepy as hell, and I think he does a fantastic job of being the new villain in this film. Just amazing, amazing job. And one of my favorite scenes in the film is the scene where John Connor is running away from the T-1000, and he's in this hallway in this mall. He goes to like the backs, you know, like where the offices and everything is. He's going down corridors, trying to get away from him, and the T-800 walks down one corridor, and the T-1000 walks down another, and they both pull out their guns. But at that time in the film, you don't know which one's good and which one isn't. And then as soon as Schwarzenegger says, "Get down," that whole scene, I think, is one of the best scenes in the film. I love that because it's setting up like what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. It really, really builds the tension well, and I think Cameron has just got a knack for that, and he does another fantastic job in this film of directing this. And you can't say enough great things about Linda Hamilton. I mean, because she's completely different in this film as opposed to the first Terminator. I mean, this is 10 years later. She's a complete soldier. She's been committed. Now, Dr. Silverman, who had a brief appearance in the first Terminator, is her doctor at this mental institution where they think she's insane because she keeps talking about this future that's coming in 3 years that's going to wipe out, you know, billions of people, and no one believes her. There's just some terrific action set pieces in this film, and like I said, I mean, seeing this in the summer of '91, I just thought it was fantastic because it was like special effects that you'd never seen before. My one gripe with it as a kid was just that, you know, I prefer the darker tone of the original. Yeah, I really love Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Absolutely fantastic film. Another, you know, terrific performances, terrific action. A film that still holds up, I feel, with the special effects. And just nothing but great things I can say about this film. So this, again, gets 5 skulls. John Connor, now an adult in fear of the events that took place at a young age, lives off the grid. No phone, no job, no credit cards. After failing twice, Skynet sends the most advanced machine to date, the TX or Terminatrix, to not only kill John, but his future wife as well. Once again, a Terminator is sent to protect John. The rise of the machines must be prevented, or all humanity will fall. I am sick of defending this film because I actually really, really like this film, and I don't know why it gets the shit that it does. Now, I remember this movie. This came out right before 4th of July that summer, and I remember watching this film, and there was something about this film that I liked even more than I liked Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and it was the tone. I thought that this film really retained a darker tone than was in Terminator 2, and I know that a lot of people that love this franchise might think I'm crazy for saying that, but I think that this film really is underrated, and I don't understand why some people really hate it. There are a couple of continuity issues that bother me. One was John Connor's age, and you know, the first in Terminator 2, he was supposed to be. I mean, I guess technically he could have been 11, 10. I mean, if it's supposed to be 10 years later, he's technically going to be 10 or 11 based on when Sarah had him. And in this film, it was like he was supposed to have been 13 or 14, which would not have made any sense. Also, the way that Sarah Connor, where her absence is explained, I thought was kind of, just didn't really. For such a powerful character that Linda Hamilton played in the first 2 films, that was my one gripe with this film, is that I just didn't like the way they wrote Sarah Connor out. And I know that Linda Hamilton thought that the performance that she gave in Terminator 2 was a perfect send-off for that character. The way that they explained that she wasn't in this one really bothered me, and it's still, I just think it's kind of a poor way of not having her in this. But I think the cast in this is fantastic. I really like Nick Stahl. I know he's had a lot of issues, just like, unfortunately, Ed Furlong had a lot of issues. But I really liked him as John Connor because you see him as this tormented man who's now on his own. Of course, the Judgment Day that they were trying to prevent happening from 1997, Judgment Day didn't happen. But he still lives off the grid in this fear that something's going to happen. He doesn't know what, but he stays clear of it and still has these nightmares of this impending apocalypse that's going to happen. And then you have the TX, who is the newest adversary in this film, and I thought Christina Loken did a great job. I didn't think she was as menacing as Robert Patrick in T2, but I thought she really held her own, and it was interesting to see a female Terminator and how a female Terminator would just sort of how she would operate as opposed to a man, which you had in the first 2. I also thought Claire Danes' Catherine Brewster did a great job in this. She's pretty cool, and I was like, and she kind of reminded me a little Linda Hamilton a little bit. But you know, I mean, I like that she was a strong character and wasn't just this, you know, damsel in distress type of role. And then of course Arnold coming back as the Terminator. This was right before he became governor of California, so this is like the last movie he did for a long time. But he still didn't miss a beat. Looked terrific. I mean, he was in his God, I think he was in his late 50s in this film. Still looked like he did in the in the second installment. And again, just delivers another powerhouse performance in my opinion. He is born to play this character. And there's some terrific action. There's this 20-minute chase scene that sort of kicks things off, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's one hell of a scene, and I love all of the elements that are used in it, and I think it's just it's one hell of a action set piece. There's also some other really cool ones that happen towards the end. There is sort of a gap, like a lull in the middle, where all this stuff has sort of happened, and then in the middle of it, it kind of takes in like a little bit of a pause, and it slows down things a little bit, but then it picks right back up at the end. But there is such a dark tone in this film that it was something that I thought was kind of missing from Terminator 2, and that's why I think I like it so much. Plus, I think the ending of this film is ballsy as hell. I mean, it was like, I remember my jaw hit the floor when I saw how they were going to end this film, and I was like, wow, they really went there. And it really, I mean, it was pretty hardcore to do a film like this in the summer and, you know, not have a traditional happy ending. And I know the last two Terminator films left things ambiguous. Cameron had shot a segment for Terminator 2 that took place in the future, but they opted not to use it to leave the ending more ambiguous. So this movie doesn't leave anything ambiguous. It is hitting you right in the face. And you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And I know a lot of people hate this film. And I don't understand why. And when this film came out, it got really, really good reviews. I mean, I don't really look at Rotten Tomatoes that much, but it had a 70% at least. And most critics were saying it was one of the best summer action films. And then over the course of like the next like 10 to 12 years, for some reason this movie just gets shit on and shit on repeatedly. And even when they did the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which is a show I didn't watch, but they omitted this film from that timeline because it was supposed to be just connecting to 1 and 2, and I never understood that. I think that's very unfair because I know that Cameron didn't do this film, and I think he should have done the film. But again, he decided that he wanted to go a different way, and he wanted to do films like Avatar and things like that. But which is a film I'm not a fan of. But he went and did Avatar, and that's fine. But I feel like for a film that did not have Cameron's fingerprints on it, this one ties in really well to the first two films, whether people want to hear me say that or not. So yeah, absolutely underrated film. I love Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. I give it what I give the other two films, 5 skulls. Set in a post-apocalyptic 2018, John Connor is the man fated to lead the human resistance against Skynet and its army of Terminators. But the future Connor was raised to believe in is altered, in part by the appearance of Marcus Wright, a stranger whose last memories of being on death row. Connor must decide whether Marcus has been sent from the future or rescued from the past. As Skynet prepares its final onslaught, Connor and Marcus both embark on an odyssey that takes them into the heart of Skynet's operations, where they uncover the terrible secret behind the possible annihilation of mankind. And for the first time in the series, this one deals with the war itself. This is the after effect of Judgment Day. So Judgment Day has happened. We are in the future. There's no time travel involved in this. But I really like this film, and I think, again, this film gets heavily criticized for unfair reasons. Of course, Cameron didn't direct this film. McG, who had previously been known from films like the Charlie's Angels franchise, directed this. And I remember when this film came out, just a lot of people were hating on it because of the fact that McG directed it. Now, I'm not saying it's my favorite of the franchise, but I think it gets unfairly criticized as well. Of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger is not in this film. There is kind of a scene in it that sort of pays tribute to the T-800 from the original films that Schwarzenegger plays, but it is a CGI representation and not actually Schwarzenegger, because Schwarzenegger was still governor of California when this film was made. But I think this film is terrific because, for me, you've had 3 films that's talked about this war, and this was the first film that showed the war, and there were supposed to be 2 more films after this that sort of catapult off of what this story was about. And There were some elements of this I didn't like. I'm not a huge fan of Sam Worthington. I thought his Marcus Wright character was okay. I would have preferred that the film focus on John Connor and Kyle Reese, because I thought Anton Yelchin was a perfectly cast Kyle Reese, and he did a great job in it. But they don't really show him as much as I would have liked, and they don't show Christian Bale as much. And the controversy around this film was about Christian Bale having a meltdown or blowing up on somebody while he was filming a scene, and that seemed to overshadow the film itself. And that negative publicity seemed to sort of derail any hopes that this would spawn off into another franchise. The ending on this film is kind of weak. I wasn't crazy about it. There are some great elements to it. There's a couple scenes that pay tribute to Linda Hamilton. There's a scene where Connor is listening to a recording that she had made, the recording that she's making at the end of Terminator 1 when she's in the Jeep driving out to the desert. That is utilized
Also, the song
You Could Be Mine by Guns N' Roses, which is utilized heavily in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, is played in this film again, and I thought that was a terrific use and I thought that was a terrific homage to that film. There's also some terrific set pieces with these Terminator-like motorcycles. I thought that was really cool. They also show what Kyle had explained in the first film, how the original Terminators had different looking skin so you could spot them easily. You see that in here where you see the earlier versions of the Terminators before they get to the level of Arnold's Terminator, which is utilized towards the end of the film. But I also thought that Christian Bale did a terrific job as John Connor. I loved him in this film. I think he's one of the strongest next to Anton Yelchin. I like both of them in this. But yeah, I think this film gets unfairly, another one that gets unfairly attacked because Cameron didn't do anything with it. Same thing I'm going to say about Terminator 3. Both underrated films in my opinion. Although I wouldn't rate this one as high as Terminator 3, I still would give this one 4 skulls.
When John Connor, leader of the human resistance, sends Sergeant Kyle Reese back to 1984 to protect Sarah Connor and safeguard the future, an unexpected turn of events creates a fractured timeline. Now Sergeant Reese finds himself in a new and unfamiliar version of the past, where he is faced with unlikely allies, including the Guardian, dangerous new enemies, and an unexpected new mission to reset the future.
This film was one that I was very anxiously anticipating because, of course, on the first time Schwarzenegger is playing this character again after a 12-year hiatus from the series. You have the whole idea of going back and seeing scenes from a different point of view in the original Terminator film, which I thought was really interesting. The fact that Patrick Lussier was responsible for writing it, and he's done My Bloody Valentine and Drive Angry, and also been involved with Dracula 2000 and the Scream films. Really big fan of that guy. And they were actually going to be doing something a little bit different here, similar to what we've seen with the Star Trek franchise. They were going to be going back and kind of changing things. So in this one, you're starting with the war. You're seeing the war. You're seeing Kyle Reese, who's played by Jai Courtney this time, and John played by Jason Clarke this time, as the events that take place before the Terminator is sent back to kill Sarah Connor. So Kyle Reese had explained this in the first film, what had happened, and that the Terminator had been sent back, and then he went back to protect Sarah, because the whole thing was that the Terminator was sent back to kill her before John was born. So you see that whole setup, but of course something is a little bit different, and things change when he goes back, because when he goes back, he meets Sarah, and she's not a damsel in distress. She's not a waitress. She's already been preparing for what will come. She's been preparing for Judgment Day, because there was another Terminator that was sent back even earlier to when Sarah was a little kid, and he has been taking care of her this whole time. So that was really interesting to see that. I do think that the trailers for this film completely spoiled any surprises, which pisses me off, because there's a really cool reveal, and I saw it in one of the trailers, because I like to watch trailers, and when I saw it, I think it was the second trailer they put out where they have this big reveal. And for people who haven't seen the trailer or the movie, I won't spoil it here, because it is a new film, and I don't want people to be have something ruined. but you see this big twist that's supposed to happen, and it's pretty fucking awesome because it's something I wasn't expecting to see, and I thought that was really ballsy that they were going to do this. And this movie's been getting mixed reviews. I think that the public is more appreciative of it than the critics were. The critics were kind of down on it. For all the people that bashed Terminator 3, I mean, this movie's actually getting worse ratings than Terminator 3. Terminator 3 actually got good reviews, which I will state as many times as possible. But to say what I think about Terminator Genisys, I actually really enjoyed it. I don't think it's as good as Terminator 1 or 2, but I really liked the direction they're going, and I really hope that they are doing 2 more films. There are a lot of things in this film that are showcased that are not really explained, and my assumption is they are going to be explaining them more in the future films that have already been planned to come out. I believe I've heard different years that they're supposed to come out. One said 2016 and 2017, and another said 2017 2018. So within the next 3 years, we will get 2 more films in this series, and I hope that they stay with this. I mean, the thing with Salvation that pissed me off is, you know, you were going to set up the war, you know, the films that take place during the war, but I think just with Arnold Schwarzenegger's, you know, not being a part of it, and just the backlash that film got, even though it was a profitable film, same thing as Terminator 3, they abandoned those. And that was the thing about Terminator Genisys that kind of pissed me off, is that they ignored the events of Terminator 3 and Terminator Salvation. So the way that this film starts, it's pretty much like, almost like what happened in Terminator 2 didn't matter. It was like the nuclear holocaust, Skynet going against the humans, happened in 1997. It didn't get prolonged. So that's kind of how the start of this film is. Plus you see how John Connor and Kyle Reese met, which is completely different from what happened in Salvation. So that was bothering me, because I don't like when, I feel like it's lazy. I feel like it's lazy screenwriting. You can come up with a way to tie these films together. Don't just, you know, sort of block them out or say they didn't exist. They did exist, you know, and there's people that are fans of these films. So that part kind of pissed me off a little bit, but that's a small gripe. The other little thing that I have about this film is that it doesn't explain a lot of things. So for me, I'm patient. I hope that they explain some things in the next couple films, because and then there's a couple elements of this film that just don't make sense because of the way things have transpired. So I hope that in the next 2 films they do. I thought Emilia Clarke as Sarah Connor did a terrific job. She plays Sarah Connor a lot different, but she does have, there's certain things about her that remind me of Linda Hamilton. But again, you're going to a Sarah that, you know, she's kind of got a mix of being younger, but being the age she was in the first film, and then having the combat training that she had in the second film. So she still has this little sort of arrogance to her that a kid would have, and also she has this sort of soldier persona as well. But her and Arnold Schwarzenegger, fantastic return to the form as the Terminator. The scenes that he is in are just terrific, and he just hasn't missed a beat, not playing this character for 12 years. But their scenes together are fantastic. I love the dynamic between the two. I was also very surprised by Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese. I really had a hard time with somebody else playing Kyle Reese outside of Michael Biehn. Now, I know Anton Yelchin played him in Salvation, but he was playing him as a kid. This time, Jai Courtney, who I think looks nothing like Michael Biehn, came into play Kyle Reese. And I've seen Jai Courtney in a few things. I've seen him in the Divergent, Insurgent films, and I've seen him, of course, in the last Die Hard film, A Good Day to Die Hard. And I also saw him in Jack Reacher, which I was not a fan of that film at all. But I actually think he was terrific in the role of Kyle Reese. He really made Kyle Reese his own, but did retain some elements that I really liked from Michael Biehn's character, but didn't try to mimic them and didn't try to do an impersonation of Michael Biehn. And I really liked that, and I was surprised by how well he did the character. With regards to John Connor, of course, you have Jason Clarke, who's playing John Connor in this. He was okay. I prefer Christian Bale as the adult John Connor. I think after seeing him in that role, I just really liked him. I felt like he was more of a leader. Jason Clarke did an okay job. I had seen him in the last Planet of the Apes movie. I thought he was fantastic in this. In this movie, I thought he was good. What happens to the John Connor character is pretty interesting. At that point, I thought he was stronger. than he was at the beginning of the film. So I'm just going to leave. But there are some terrific action set pieces in this film. There's one at the one of the best, and they've shown it in the trailer, and it's not too big of a spoiler, but it's the face off between the Terminator from the first Terminator film and the Guardian character that Schwarzenegger is playing. So Schwarzenegger is pretty much fighting himself in one scene. That is, and the attention to detail in this scene and other scenes that are taking place in the same timeline that Cameron's film took place in. So when they go back in time, and you go back to 1984, I mean, there are actually pieces of set pieces that were right from Cameron's film that were done pretty close here. I mean, of course, they're a little bit changed up because they're different actors playing the parts, but for the most part, I mean, there was pretty good attention to detail. I mean, just down to the department store where Kyle Reese runs into to find clothing and shelter from the police. I mean, I was like, this is pretty fucking ballsy. And I'm a big stickler for continuity, and I thought they did a terrific job of setting those set pieces up. The thing that I think is going to piss off a lot of people about this film is that they pretty much are erasing, pretty much they're doing kind of what Days of Future Past did for X-Men. I mean, it's almost like this is its own new timeline. You can go back to at certain points and say, okay, well, this happened, but this didn't happen the way it happened in the first series of films. This is its own series, and this is going to be taking things in a different direction. And I don't know how people that are fans of the original franchise are going to take that, because it is changing things up. And you're either going to roll with it and say, hey, this is cool, it's going in a new direction, or you're going to be very upset about it, because it is pretty much erasing movies from the time. A lot of things that are probably going to either turn people off from this film, or actually people are going to accept it and kind of roll with it like I did. But like I said, those other films exist. This is a new franchise. They are planning 2 more films where I think they're going to explain things. But I really love the set piece on the Golden Gate Bridge. I love that one. I also love the one at the end. Just terrific set pieces. I wish they wouldn't have spoiled, like I said, part of the film, and it's no fault in the filmmakers. In fact, I heard the director, Alan Taylor, was pissed off that they showed that when I was talking about the reveal in the trailer, because I think people not knowing, it actually would have, I think it would have been great if it would have just been a surprise during the movie. I don't understand why the studio felt the need to throw that into the trailer, because it actually just... It ruins the moment in the film because it's coming. So, yeah, I mean, I actually really enjoyed this film. I don't know why the critics are shitting on it. I don't know why some people are, so negative towards it. It's doing well in theaters. It's doing really well overseas. I hope they make these 2 other films. I think they have to, because what I've heard is that in 2019, Cameron gets the rights back to the franchise, so they're trying to get these films out before then. And I think you have to, because Schwarzenegger is in his late 60s now, so you have to actually, if you're going to keep him in this franchise, you're going to have to keep making just so, like, terrific humor, terrific action set pieces, great storytelling, really different. I love how they take elements from the old films and kind of put them in this one. I think it's a real tribute to the Terminator franchise, and bringing this series to a new audience. You have to reinvent it. So yeah, I really like the film. If I had to give this film a rating, I would give this film 4.5 skulls. So that is it, my friends. That is my retrospective of the Terminator franchise, and I'm really interested to see what other people think about this series. If you've seen all the films, if you've seen Genesis and you want to share your thoughts, please share them in the comment section. I'm really excited to see where they take this. I like different things, and I know it's it's an established series, but I feel like they're taking it in a different direction, and I'm excited. So hope everyone has a great rest of their weekend. Thank you so much for watching this video, and stay tuned for another retrospective coming very, very soon. Take it easy. Stay scared. Peace.